All right, so we're live with Assimilate-Python, and today I'm going to cover a very popular topic, which is virtual environments. And I wanted to dispel some myths about virtual environments and different tools with Python. So, a little bit of a backstory. I've been using Python for, I think it's 20 something years, 22 years, something like that. So I've been around the block here, and I've also been doing DevOps for decades, written several books on DevOps. So I do actually know how to build reproducible environments. I've been using Python in many different settings, from film to social media companies to machine learning. And here's the main thing I think that many people don't know about Python is that, in fact, it is batteries included. What this means is that if we go through here and we look for the virtual environment or even pip, it's included inside of Python. And we can see the way you include things in the Python language is by creating a Python enhancement proposal. Inside of Python enhancement proposal 439, there's an inclusion of implicit pip bootstrap in Python, right? And so we can see here that these are proposals, and there's another one, explicit bootstrapping of Python. This one was final, right? You can see the whole history of the fact that it says this PEP was accepted. And in general, to make a long story short, without going through all the documentation, that this battery included Python also has a virtual environment manager. So essentially, you don't need any other tool. If you want to use another tool, that's great. There's tons of other tools to manage your environment, but all languages from Windows to Linux to OS 10, you can use this approach. So let's go ahead and get started. And let me start off with a cloud environment. I'm going to go ahead and launch AWS Cloud Shell, which is right here. And so this is, I think, one of the better ways to play around with the concepts of a virtual environment is just pick some shell somewhere, right? So it could be AWS, it could be your local desktop, it could be anywhere that you want to do, development. And what's nice about a shell environment is it really does make you go to first principles, right? So you can start from the very beginning and try out whether an approach works for you by going through first principles. So let's go ahead and try this out. I'm going to go ahead and launch up AWS Cloud Shell here. Let this thing run, and what we'll do here is actually show that the necessary tools are already inside of Python. There are no other tools that are necessary inside of Python. Just, in fact, the regular Python utility. So I'm going to launch this Cloud Shell. Additionally, I'm going to go to Azure. I'm going to go ahead and launch an Azure Cloud Shell here. Let's go ahead and do that. And I also will go to GCP and we'll launch a GCP Cloud Shell. And what you're going to find out here is that the exact same process is going to apply for AWS, for Azure, and for GCP, and it should be exactly for your own machine. So I'm going to go ahead and deactivate a virtual environment that I've got set up here. So to start off with, if we just type in, any kind of regular Python install, we can say which Python, right? Oh, Python. And if I run it, it says Python 2.7. Now we also have Python 3. If we type in Python 3, we see that this particular environment has Python 3.7.15 in there. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and install some software. Well, what would we do? Are we stuck? I mean, how can I actually install software with Python? Fortunately, we're not stuck because it comes with these tools by default. The first thing that you should do when you're using Python is type in Python 3-m-venv. So let's go ahead and break this down. So the first thing is the Python 3 is the language version. And then I'm going to type in m to get the particular module that I'm going to run. In this case, it's going to be venv, like that. And what venv will do is it'll create a dedicated virtual environment. And if we want to be easy here, what we can do is call this venv2, because I already have one in this environment. And it's trivial, right? Again, it comes with the Python language. Now to activate it, it's just one command. You type in source venv2, then activate, just like that, right? So you can see it comes with Python, the virtual environment. To activate is just one line of code. Now we do this, what happens? Well, it changes the default version of Python. If I type in which Python, you see that it's using ~venv2, and even better, it also includes the recommended installer tool for Python. So there is no other tool that you need to use the Python package repository. In fact, let's go to the Python package repository. Let's go to PyPy here, and let's scroll over to this, and you can see here there's 421,533 projects with 4 million releases, and there's almost, a little over 500,000 users. This is supported by the Python Software Foundation. It is the official way to install Python packages. If you want to use other tools, use other tools, but you should at least be aware of the fact that this is the default tool, and that the majority of the packages in Python are, in fact, in this particular environment. Now, if I want to install some tool, what do? Fortunately, it's already ready for me because the pip tool already comes with Python. Now, if I want to install a very popular open source data science library like Pandas, all I have to do is type in Pandas. Now, notice this is just 3 words: pip space install space Pandas. I don't have to flag a specific repo, etc. The default is exactly the library that I care about. Let's go ahead and watch how this works. There we go. Now you'll occasionally see things like this, like you're using an older version of pip, and look, it's easy to install a new version of pip if you choose to. You don't have to, but if you choose to do that, you could just do this exact command that they tell you. So in this case, we'll go through here and we'll just say upgrade pip, right? There we go. So we upgraded pip. Now, how do I test out that something worked? I could just use the default shell, and we can say import pandas as PD. There we go. And we see that pandas actually work. So for 99.99999% of use cases, the simplest possible way to use Python is to use the standard library, which includes all of the tools, virtual environments for you, and pip for you. All you have to do is activate it. I think this is not very commonly known. To get out of this, you just type in deactivate. There we go. And now we're out. If we type in which Python, we see that that's actually the Python. Now, again, these fancy tools, often all they're doing is they're just making the default bash RC use the fancy tool. You don't even need to do that. If you want to, you can just go to your own bash RC file if it's in an interactive shell like this, and just do this. You can just, in the bottom of your shell, type in source tilde .venv, whatever one you want to activate, and bin activate. And in fact, if you wanted to, you could create aliases so that you cd to a certain repo and then source the environment. It's up to you. You can do anything you want. There is literally no need to install these other fancy tools if you don't want to. If you want to keep things really, really simple, this is the approach that I would recommend. And in fact, what's cool about this is that once you open up a new shell, if you do automatically source it, all you have to do is just open up a new shell, and this is what will happen. Go to the bash RC. There we go. We've got our virtual environment with Python. So now if you don't believe me, let's go to a new environment. Let's go over to Azure here. The same thing goes into play. This is what I've done in all my environments. I just type in Python 3-m venv. Call this one venv2. There you go. You can see I did the exact same thing in this environment, and I can source it venv2 and activate, right? There's nothing tricky about this. It's included inside of the default environment for Python. Similarly, let's go over to Google and let's go ahead and type in Python 3-m venv, and we'll call this one as well venv2. There we go. Put your virtual environment, I source it, and venv2 and activate, install pandas, right? Flawless. So If you want the simplest possible way to install software on your machine, that's all you need to do is just do create a virtual environment, source it, and then do a pip install. Now, if you want to make things a little bit more sophisticated, what you can do as well, that's trivial, is that we can actually create a requirements.txt file. So if I go through here and I type in touch requirements.txt, we can go inside of here and we can put in pandas, just like this. And now, how do we install this? Pretty trivial. We can just say pip install -r requirements. That's it. And we can use that file to load lots and lots of different things. Now, in this case, I'm out of space on my hard drive, so I can just delete something like here we go, DevOps. Let's go ahead and do it again. Pip install requirements. There we go. I guess this particular environment is a little bit whacked out because it's a very small environment and I have lots of stuff on here. So what I'll do instead is I'll just go to a new environment and we'll do the same thing. We'll just say touch requirements.txt and init. And we can just put in include here. I can do pandas here. And then we can do that same thing. I can say pip install -r requirements.txt, and it'll just install from this. Now, one of the cool things about using this approach is that if you wanted to get even more specific and actually pin things down, one of the things that you can do is that you can, in fact, pin it. And so to pin it, again, these are all built-in tools. There's nothing you need to do to change this. You just type in pip freeze grep pandas. A lot of people have asked about this. Hey, how do I pin version numbers? Here's how you do it. You just type in pip space freeze, pipe it into grep, do a grep for the package. Now go back to your requirements file and then just replace it. There you go. And now it's pinned. I personally, and then if you want to say pip install again, -r requirements, actually specifically pin it. Now, I personally like to do makefiles, and if you want, you can actually do a makefile. And so what you could do as well, if we open up a full editor here, is that you could just add an install right here. Install. Now hopefully it'll do tabs for me, but we can just say pip install -r requirements .txt, and hopefully if it's not set up to be spaces, it'll just work. And I can just close this. Whoops, go back to here. I can just go here and I can just type in make install. So I have to do it from it's the space issue. Tabs. Let's go here. Yeah, with spaces. There we go. Now it's tabs. I think that this should work. Make install. Boom. There we go. And I personally like that because then I have a reproducible thing that I can put into my build server, check this in. And so many people I've heard say, well, what about, reproducible pipelines? Like, this is DevOps. DevOps is you have a makefile that has pin requirements. You put this into your build system. You automatically reproduce the build and you test it, lint it, format it, and you do this whether it's a Windows machine, a Linux machine, Solaris machine, HPUX machine, Ubuntu, whatever it is. This is DevOps, and you need zero tools other than the Python standard library to do this in Python. And that's all my lesson is for today. All right, I'll see you in a couple weeks.